Well, it's a milestone episode for the Women's Cricket Podcast. It's episode 25, coming live from India and UK respectively, which is how it's been for the last few weeks, will be for the next few weeks. Like always, we've got Neha joining us on the place where we talk about all things women's cricket. Shetty Saab, kaise ho aaj?
Hi, Akshay, doing really well. Again, happy that this is our 25th episode. Again, quite the journey that we have had. But just looking at the week that's passed by, been very interesting. India, of course, going on to win that fourth T20I. And very interestingly, India won the T20I, the fourth T20I on 9th July, which was exactly 26 years, after when India did win that ODI series back then in 1999. So quite a special moment that happened on that same day, 26 years later. So just reeling from that sort of happiness. I think England did admit to a lot of things not working in their favor. But all in all, just a very happy time, I think.
Yeah, very happy time. Not so happy times for the English side, of course. They've just not been able to get their act together. In fact, there were a few more milestones that we saw during the games as well. Sophie Ecclestone was playing 100 T20I. We also saw Sophie Ecclestone take her 300 T20 wicket. Earlier in the day, we saw Deepti Sharma also take her 300th wicket. So a game of milestones for sure. It was pretty fun to watch. Unfortunately, not just as exciting as, say, the previous three T20Is that way. Something the fans weren't too happy about, but Manchester, Old Trafford, iconic venue, was great to watch there. And let's start off with that, yeah. Match ki baat kar hi rahe. Just the one game that's happened over the last week, of course. India took on England in the 4 T20I win over there, would have secured the series, their first ever series win, like Neha mentioned a while back. Neha, again, another comprehensive victory. I don't think I've seen an Indian side that's been so clinical over the course of a series. We see the one-odd game that they do well, beat Australia, beat anyone. They do come with such performances once in a while. But sustained consistency, that's what we were hoping for. And boy, have they delivered there.
Absolutely, Akshay. And I think just on a lighter note, I think you were joking about how you were the lucky charm, having watched all of these matches up close and personal, being in the stadiums, being the reason India is doing so well. But obviously, not taking away from the kind of performances that the Indian team collectively as a unit has been able to put up, which is reflective of this new mindset. I think even Radha Yadav kind of alluded to something similar, that, this is a team that is on that path of domination, wants to get those wins under their belt. There are a few problems that have been acknowledged. They're trying to work towards, getting better. But the fourth T20 was a reflection of that. I mean, restricting England to 100, 26 odd, and then eventually coming down to chase the total. It was turning out to be a slightly tricky chase, losing those wickets here and there. But again, right, it was those partnerships that honestly made the difference. Be it, Jemima Rodriguez and Harmanpreet Kaur, the kind of partnership that they really struck. Shefali, indeed, giving us that sort of a start as well. And later you have Richa coming in and also doing her thing. It was a very good collective team effort. For the longest time, India has wanted that. And even in the bowling department, right, a lot of the bowlers just coming to the party and doing their bit. Very economical spells as well. I think it just leaves England with a lot more questions than answers from the series. I think they were a very excited team before the series started that, hey, we have the T20 World Cup that's coming up later this year. So we need to, get a few of our deficiencies ironed out. And actually, they thought they would end up on the right side of the result. I think something that we had also predicted in our preview that, hey, probably England's going to win this one. But again, right, India has just proven that, hey, we are just not here to compete, but we are actually here to dominate and win. And leading the series right now 3-1, heading into the fifth T20 at any given day of the week. I mean, as fans or even as spectators watching the game, we will take it, right? India will definitely take a lot of positives, and just very excited to see where this fifth T20 takes us.
I mean, irrespective of the result in the 50-20, Team India will be proud of, the result that they've managed to achieve over here. We saw the videos, of their celebrations and whatnot, and you could see what it meant to them because they've received a lot of flack before the series began, and rightfully so, I might say. I was also one of them who felt that as fans, almost we are being hard done by with the kind of selections, the kind of tactics, the kind of performances that we've seen on the field. So I was very happy to see them not just course correct, but also see immediate results with, whatever changes that they came up with. Be it, going ahead with just the two paces. That was also a very interesting change that they went ahead with. And the fact that it paid immediate dividends, just, validating their choices, and in a very sort of tiny little way our own choices, because we'd also brought it up. Have to sort of bring that up. We'll have to put ourselves out there. But before we move ahead, folks, please at the end of the episode, पूरा episode देखने के बाद comments में बताइएगा what do you make of it. Of course, like always, last week काफी सारे comments मिले थे. Please, again, feel free. It's your opinion. We're more than happy to take your opinion. And yeah, any feedback on things that we've spoken about. Neha, of course, has already been brandished Smriti fan against her consent. So that's been an interesting update. But jokes apart, once again, folks, we would like to reiterate, as much as we are fans of certain teams and maybe even certain players, we do try our best to be as objective as possible. Us criticizing someone is not coming from a place of us thinking that they're not good enough to play. It's coming from a place of we know how important they are to the team, and which is why we want them to perform. And you might say that they're probably a victim of their own standards, sure, but that doesn't mean that we would expect less from them. There's a reason last week, once again, just to put that out there, स्मृति के सेंचुरी के बारे में हमने बात नहीं किया ज्यादा, because we are expecting her to do well, which is something we spoke even during the video. And we hope you understand that. Apologies if it did not come across, so we just wanted to put that out there explicitly. Now, swiftly coming back to the game, Neha, positives की बात कर रहे हैं. Shree Charani has to be one of the biggest positives. Yeah, no one saw her having this kind of series that she ended up having. Wickets in every game, 10 plus wickets already in the first 4 encounters. She's clearly staking a claim even for the ODI World Cup squad, to be honest.
Absolutely, Akshay. I think Shree Charani has really made a case for herself, something that we did talk about in our previous conversation. I think she's definitely been the find of the series for India. Let's actually go as far as to say that just looking at the fourth T20, the kind of wicket she got was constantly challenging Danny White, was not just letting her get away and then eventually getting her wicket. Again, it takes me back to the conversation of, during the WPL when the two, were just having a chat with Danny White, was being like, yeah, I think this is definitely one to watch out for. It was a very interesting conversation. And later, to just again come back, I think it was probably the 12th over to, take the wicket of Alice Capsey as well. I think it was just fantastic, right? Shree Charani, the way she has been bowling, she's been mixing up her line and length and just making it very difficult for the batters to read her, right? I hope she just continues to grow from strength to strength. Again, takes me back to the point of how India has been very nonchalant or very dismissive of their left-arm spinners, and often how we see them, just fall out of the India radar or just not be in that sort of a pecking order. So Shree Charani definitely has made a very strong case for herself, even for that ODI World Cup. And she'll be very happy, right, performing for India in overseas conditions, much against all the odds and certain other players that we thought probably would have been an ideal sort of choice. And I think there was again a feature written by Shashank Kishore for ESPN on Shree Charani's story, and how being ignored for that under-19 World Cup kind of hurt her, and then she was just working her way up through the ranks, did well domestically and in age group cricket to again just stake a claim in this very competitive Indian side, that to a T20 side like this just speaks volumes, right? Honestly, hoping she's continued to grow in that setup, used more effectively by the leadership group at large, and we continue to see her deliver results like this.
Yeah, 100% agree with you then. In fact, we'll just add to the feature that you mentioned. Brilliant, please do check that out. They might be our competitors technically, but we're more than happy to just let people know. Do give it a read. Some of the bites that they mentioned. In fact, the bite of first ever coach, about how he initially picked her because of a feeling. It wasn't the bowling that impressed. It was her feeling, the way she apparently cut angles, the way she ran towards the ball, was not scared of it. That was very unlike any other teenager. So happy to see this, and fingers crossed that she will keep up the good work, because this is only the beginning. There will be days when batters also understand her game. I mean, there will be times eventually when batters also start figuring her out, and how does she evolve. All of that will come into picture, and we are excited to fasten our seatbelts and watch the show that is Shree Charani. Neha, India England की बात कर रहे हैं. We've spoken about Team India. Talking about the English side, we spoke about the fact that their batters have been struggling in the last episode, and it hasn't really changed in the last game as well. Yaar. Matlab, scoring this 126 after batting out 20 overs, that does not cut a really rosy pitcher in all fairness. And Danny Whitehodge, Alice Capsey, hardly any of them have been firing.
Honestly, Akshay, that's such an interesting observation. Something that we were, talking about in our previous discussion as well. Because I thought, hey, maybe as the series progresses, we might see a change in fortunes for England, but that clearly isn't the case, right? I mean, I had the chance to watch the match and obviously the highlights as well. You could see how the English batters, especially up top, be it Sophia Dunkley or Danny Whitehodge, were really struggling, right? They were just trying to they were trying too hard to slog and just get those runs. Somewhere, I think we have reflected on the opening combo itself. Should they probably, look to bring in Tammy Beaumont up there, use Sophia Dunkley as a floater, have Alice Capsey also probably come in later. But again, it all just points to a very simple narrative that this is a team that's heavily dependent on Nat Brunt, who unfortunately right now is ruled out. They kind of need her, be that anchor, and expecting other players to do that is just clearly not working out for them. Very unidimensional batters in that setup, and that's definitely not auguring well for them, as seen right in all the occasions that they have kind of battled. First, they need that one player to dig deep and bat out, which hasn't clearly been the case, ever since Nat Brunt was ruled out because of injury. And you just see some very conservative brand of cricket being played. Although this is their home conditions, they're just not able to read the conditions as much, which was something I think been admitted by Tammy Beaumont too in one of those conversations with I think the broadcaster, that hey, we could have done better, in reading the conditions, and even my soft dismissal kind of added to that, which was quite fascinating in that sense. But England definitely needs an overhaul in that batting lineup, and this is again an English side that is eyeing to do well in ICC events. They have one coming up next year at home itself. Again, a lot of players have not really done well, and I'm sure they won't take any reactionary calls. But England definitely needs an introspection of how they want to go about and use their resources in a better manner. Because this is Charlotte Edwards we're talking about. I mean, the kind of coach that England have wanted for the longest time, yet them not being able to succeed is just very unfortunate. And this, I think, India tour has been quite an eye opener for them. Losing the T20I series was definitely, I think, the final nail in the coffin for them to actually, again, just go back to the drawing board and figure things out. And the fact that Maya Bouchier has been had been called in as a replacement for Nat Brunt, has been asked to continue to stay in that ODI setup too, goes to show that there are some struggles that have to be addressed in the batting side of things across formats. So it's definitely opened a Pandora's box, for England to figure out, and hopefully they can get this sorted.
When it comes to Tammy Beaumont, yeah, like I was genuinely of the opinion that her 50 in Bristol would have potentially caused more harm to England than good in the long run, because it invariably meant that they had no option but to play her going forward. And once Nat Brunt was ruled out of the series itself, they continued with her captaining, which first of all was a fairly baffling call, if I'm being very polite, because you've got someone like a Sophie Eccleston as well, who can be made captain. Tammy Beaumont did not play the first game. She's not a part of your first 11. आप सीधा उनको ना ही प्लेइंग 11 में ला रहे हो, आप सीधा उनको कैप्टन बना रहे हो. So that did not really sit well with me, firstly. And secondly, Tammy Beaumont batting at 4 meant a lot of the other players, Paige Coffey, I really wanted to see more of her. She's batting at number 6. I don't know how is that doing any justice to the side or her. You had Alice Capsey coming in at 3, which I guess because some people did defend that, saying, that is her best position. But Behin abhi form mein hai nahi. She's not in any form whatsoever. So what's the point of giving her a best position when you've got other batters who deserve a chance, who either are playing out of position or aren't even in the squad? So that's where I was like, what's happening? So if it were up to me, I would have been bringing in a host of changes ahead of the 5th T20 ICF to try and see what works, what doesn't. Because Danny Whitehodge, once again, unfortunately, from being one of the most renowned players of spin to now struggling to even start against them, it's been a very steep sort of I don't want to say downfall, because I really want to believe this is just a temporary rut that we're talking about. And it's hard to see that. If someone like a Maya Bouchier, if she gets to open with Sophia Dunkley, there's a good chance of them maximizing the power play a lot better. I would have Tammy Beaumont at number 3. Might not have been the best of batters, but she's done a more than decent job of captaining her side. Number 4, Paige. Number 5, Amy Jones. Number 6, Alice Capsey, simply because I don't see any other batter with the finisher ability or finishing ability that they're looking for. Number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11, they all pick themselves. Maybe another change I would make is try and squeeze in Emma Alit somewhere, but I don't know where can she come in. Charlie Dean, Sophie Eccleston, and the three pacers, three pacers and Izzy Wonk and both the Lawrence, they pick themselves. They haven't done too badly, but that batting is going to be tested badly. Like, this is a depleted Indian bowling attack we're talking about. This is not even a full strength bowling attack. A lot of people, on both sides are like, yeah, theek hai, jo bhi hai. Nats of a Brand didn't play, Heather Knight didn't play. They were huge misses. But you need to understand the same was the case for Team India. We not have Renuka Singh Thakur, we not have Pooja Vasika, we not have Shriyanka Patil, we not have so many of our first 11 players. And despite that, for them to come up with such a comprehensive performance, that's what makes it even more motivating for the side and for fans like us. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting next 12 months for the English side ahead of the T20 World Cup, which is happening at home next year. So it's not going to be any easy. Fans will be there, critics will be there, everyone will be at them, and probably with even knives in their hands. So let's see how they go about it. Lottie, she's got her task cut out for herself, like we've spoken about in previous episodes too. Nats of a Brand, she will also now have to really not just take up responsibility or more of it with the bat, but even as the captain on the field, a lot will be expected of her, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So that was that from the 4 T20I. Now talking about the India A series, Bhai Saab, India A announced their squads for the multi-format series that they will be having in August when they tour Australia for an India-Australia series. Australia squads के बारे में हमने बात किया था. Charlie Nott had been slated to captain, but I don't know if that's going to happen because London Spirit have signed her as Deepti Sharma's replacement, who unfortunately will be missing out to manage her workload. So we'll have to see who ends up captaining their T20 and one-day sides, if I'm not wrong. Could in all likelihood be Talia Migra because she was the one captaining the other side as well. But coming to the India A squads, Neha, happy with some of the names that we've seen because if I remember it correctly, the one thing we'd spoken out when the Australia A squads came out was the India A squad does not have to be just fringe players, include a few first 11 players, and they've done just that.
Honestly, actually, I think this is one of those moments in the podcast where, like, hey, did the selectors actually listen to us? But again, stepping out of that narcissistic zone, very pleased with the selections. It honestly feels like this is a step in the right direction, right? The kind of players chosen clearly reflect a good mix of players who are obviously on the fringes. You see domestic performances being rewarded and players who are regulars for India, right? Across formats, which is what we exactly wanted to see. Tad bit surprised with Radha Yadav being chosen as captain there because there were other players. But then I think again on tours like this, it's not about who's the captain. It's probably more about the leadership group and how, as a group, they're going to encounter different situations. But really pleased to see a lot of names like Shafali Verma too, right? She's someone who's kind of fighting her way into the squad, and we see her being in the T20 and the one day and multi-day squad as well. Even we spoke about so many names, right? Joshita Vijay, for example, I'm so happy to see her name being in that T20 squad because this is, I think that I think a name that the think tank really sees a lot of potential in and probably want to groom her for the future as well. And actually, I think you'd be particularly happy seeing Shriyanka Patil's name too, right? I mean, there is a interesting asterisk next to it, which says subject to clearance and her fitness and all of that being on. Par with the expectations. So really hoping she can also kind of make it to the playing 11s whenever she gets that opportunity. But even the likes of Uma Chetri, you have Nandini Kashyap and Ragbi Bish. These are players who've been a part of the senior team in some capacity, played a few games, have gotten that opportunity. Nandini Kashyap, unfortunately, not. But at least you see them being in the A setup in some capacity, right? And this is versus a very competitive Australia side. Again, let's not probably fixate a lot on the results and where that takes us. But just the fact that you see names here who the Indian team is keeping in consideration is definitely signs of good things to come. Tanuja Kanwar is another name we were really hoping for consideration in this England series itself. But at least she's there in the A tour, good exposure. Hopefully she can sort of make the most of it. I know the pace department and the bowling attack looks slightly inexperienced, but again, let's treat this tour as a learning curve rather than us trying to maximize or and do the best. And one other very interesting addition has to be that of Tanushree Sarkar. I think in the senior women's multi-day challenger trophy, right? Man, she's just scoring runs in bulk. And to see that sort of a performance being rewarded, I hope she gets to play the multi-day game eventually, because her technique has been spoken about by so many pundits. And glad to see that, the performance has been taken into cognizance and she's been included in this squad. I mean, if given an opportunity, I'll probably keep raving about each name, but each name on that list definitely has made a case for themselves. And somewhere you see the domestic and the WPL performances being rewarded to some extent that has warranted a place in this in each of these squads.
Firstly, Tanushree Sarkar was a name you had spoken about, when we were talking about names that we would want to see. So you must also be thrilled. Of course, not just because of the fact that you had taken a name, the fact that, domestic performances are being rewarded. Completely agree with you there. It's important that, players like them also get some exposure when it comes to playing top tier sides. So understand where the standard is at. And about the names, of course, let's go one by one with Shefali Verma. Let's first of all have the one day and multi-day squad out. There we go. Radha Yadav to captain. Minu Mani, who was the captain last year when India went to Australia, has now been made vice captain. Shefali, Tejal Hasabnes, Ragvi Bish, Tanushree Sarkar, Uma Chetri, Nandini Kashyap. Between that, they've got Priya Mishra and Tanuja Kanwar, and then Dhara Gujjar, Joshita Vijay, Shabnam Shakil, Saima Thakur, and Tita Shadu to round off the squad. A very eclectic mix. It's not a word I use often enough, but I do use it once in a while, and I don't think I could have found a better, situation to use that, because some of the names do make me wonder, ki bhai, what are they thinking? What's the thought process? With Shefali Verma, a lot of people when the squads came out were like, "Oh wow, this is good to see," because that means Shefali Verma is still in the mix for the ODI World Cup as well. If she does well here, potentially she could be picked for the India-Australia ODIs as well. And from there, if she makes a case for herself, the ODI World Cup too. But yahin pe mera sawal hai, one day and multi-day squad is the same. Shefali Verma is a given in the multi-day format for India as well. So that's where the sort of glass half empty side of me is wondering if she's been picked for the multi-day side of things and not for the one-day side of things. Because they've got other top order options. So Nandini Kashyap, potentially Uma Chetri as well. I don't know if Uma Chetri can open per se. We've got Tejal, Ragvi, all of them. Ragvi also opens Uttarakhand mein, jab Uttarakhand Premier League vagara hua tha. So that's where, again, if I have to sort of look at it that way, I could potentially see Shefali not even playing a one-day game, because the think tank might be very clear that Pratika Rawal is the front runner and there's no point thinking too much about it. And that's where my next question is. August में कोई international matches नहीं हो रहा. So why isn't Pratika Rawal playing this? Like, it would be great game time for her, experience for her to understand how these players are, and proper. It's again, such games are always any day better than, just practicing at nets or, playing some club games back home. So that was something I was surprised by. Secondly, another thing that I'm very disappointed with is the fact that Renuka Singh Thakur pe kuch to bol do ki kya hai, like give us an update. I'm like, we don't know if she's even going to be a part of the World Cup, to be honest, at this rate, because after this there are only 3 ODIs that happen in September, a month before the World Cup begins. Not even a month, a couple of weeks before the World Cup begins. So I don't know if it's too late for, someone like Renuka Singh Thakur to come in, and in case if she doesn't perform in that ODI series, and what happens. So that's where kuch bata hi dete, like at least give us some clarity as fans, and also so that we know, okay, you guys aren't looking at Renuka Singh Thakur for the World Cup because of her injury. Now we don't know if they are or not. That's one. Next, Joshita, Shabnam, Saima, Titash. That's I love that pace attack, to be honest. Joshita is someone I know had a very disappointing inaugural WPL campaign. But he kya hota hai sabke saath. Just the raw skills when we look at, the bowling, something we've spoken about before. I love her run up. I love her action. There aren't too many bowlers who can swing the ball both ways in India. On top of that, she's a good fielder, and she's also a batter who can more than handle herself at number 7, number 8, number 9. So the kind of package that we're looking for, the kind of package that we've seen with Amanjot Kaur, hopefully we can bring in another such player. This is the kind of balance and stability that will bring to the entire 11. Uff, मजा आ जाएगा भाई. 2 pace bowler all rounder अगर एक साथ खेल जाए, I'll definitely have my bag of popcorn in front of me. But now talking about the T20 squad, Neha, names that you see and kya lagta hai, boss?
Yeah, again, just looking at the T20 squad, right? I mean, Radha Yadav leading that T20 squad, I did mention was a little bit of a surprise, but again, not entirely shocked with that decision. For the longest time, has been doing well for India. I mean, the wicket tally may not really show as much, but quite the athletic fielder is able to save you runs at will, can chip in, with those cameos and can get you those wickets as well. So fair enough. I see where they are coming from. Um, Even with Vrinda Dinesh being included in that T20 squad, I think if you just look at Vrinda's performances in the domestic circuit this time around, her strike rate was such a big talking point, not just in the T20 side of things, but even in the one day side of things, right? She was just striking it so beautifully. So, not entirely surprised to see her selection there. And even with Sajana, right? Has been doing well domestically, and even when she did feature in the, I think it was the KCA Pink Challenger tournament, was scoring runs, was actually batting so much higher up in the order than the way we have seen how Mumbai Indians uses a very sparingly lower down the order. But she's been doing incredibly well and has definitely made a case for herself. Even with Uma Chetri, right? It's again a case of just trusting her potential comes from Assam, and just making her way into again a very competitive Indian side. Hailing from that region is super inspirational, and to see her continue retain her spot is really nice, because here Akshay is a little tempted. He should be probably bring in someone like a Jeet Risha or even someone like a Kambalini. We had spoken about them last time around too, but somewhere the renewed. I wouldn't even say renewed. I think just the kind of belief they have in someone like Uma is really nice to see, and hope she can also kind of justify all her critics and everyone with performances like that. Even just seeing the duo of Raghavi Bisht and Nandini Kashyap as well, they've been such domestic giants for Uttarakhand, right? I mean, the openers, as openers, they've just performed exceedingly well. So hopefully they can replicate some of that form here. And again, similar thoughts about the bowling too, right? You have Joshita Vijay, you have Shabnam Shakil, Saima Thakur, and Titash Sadhu, which is a more than decent pace attack. Some of them are coming back from injury, so it will take time for them to just ease into things. But again, solid picks. And with even Tanuja Kanwar and Minu Mani, like it's again, you feel your spin department is in stable hands, and hopefully they will be able to also perform well. A little bit of a surprise pick definitely has to be that of Prema Rawat. I think someone we really rated highly, did well for Uttarakhand as well. I think when Shree Rana had spoken highly of her, when I had a conversation with her on another platform, and really happy to see her presence in this T20 squad, and let's see how she ends up performing. So again, just coming back to the point that each of the names have really done something to warrant their place in this sport. Hopefully they can perform and just make the most of an experience like this. Being selected for the A team is no mean feat, and hopefully we will see them in the pathway and eventually transition to the senior team. Once we reach that phase where we'll have to think of alternatives and other options. Yeah.
Parting thoughts for me on the keeper bit as well, same like Renuka Singh Thakur and even Pratika Rawal. I would have wanted to see Astika Bhatia, because sure, she might be a part of the main squad, but she's hardly getting any game time there because Richa Ghosh is the incumbent. So thoda game time yahan pe de dete just to make sure that she's also in the groove. So that was another name I was sort of surprised with. And with the captaincy bit, I do agree. I wasn't entirely sure what the thinking was behind, giving Radha Yadav the captaincy, because make no mistake, she wasn't someone who's even a part of the first squad, the full strength squad of Team India that went to England. It was only because of Shruti Upadhyay's injury that she came in. And this is already a depleted Indian squad, despite not having so many of the first choice players. If Radha wasn't picked for the main squad, then her being made captain here, I didn't know what to make of it. That's why someone like a Shefali Verma, I thought it would be interesting to see her being given captaincy, because T20s now and tests mein hame pata she is going to play for Team India. So knowing this, then could they have probably just stuck with her is a question that they will have to answer for themselves. And the names more or less pick themselves. Personally, Uma Chetri ka, I don't know, man. Like, as much as I love a good story in cricket, just that Uma Chetri, the player, hasn't impressed me so much yet, be it the T20Is or even WPL mein. So that's where Jessica would have made even more sense, or even a Kamalini, like you said, maybe to give a youngster a chance. Pata nahi, dekhte, fingers crossed for her, just for her sake, that she does do well. Vrinda Dinesh, interesting pick. So is Tejal Hasabnis. What is interesting is ki bhai, she had a fantastic tourney at the Maharashtra Premier League that ended last month, but she's not been picked in the T20 setup. She's only been picked for the one day and the multi-day squad. So don't know what the rationale there is as well. There are some notable exclusions too. Asha Shobna, I think her India career unfortunately is all but done because injuries ka hame pata nahi what's the status firstly, and secondly she's definitely not getting any younger. They've gone ahead with Priya Mishra for the one day series and the multi-day series. So clearly they are, I'm guessing, looking in that direction. Even if she does get fit, say in the next few months, I don't see her getting any game time soon. And then apart from that, you've got someone like a Kiran Navgire who was a part of last year's squad, not included. Bharti Fulmali didn't do too badly in the last WPL as well. You've got someone like a Kanika Huja, closer to our homes, that is. She also unfortunately hasn't been picked. Neha, any other notable exclusions? Any thoughts on these as well, the ones that I mentioned?
Yeah, so I think you pretty much summed it up there with these notable exclusions. And I think one name that I would have probably liked to see again was Pooja Vastrikar too, right? I mean, has been out of India colours for such a long period of time, and just again easing her way back through the A side would have been quite ideal. Even just the names you reflected on, like Asha Shobna, hopefully the time is not running out. We get to see her, make another sort of a magical comeback. Because that's how competitive the setup is, right? You always have someone who's knocking at the door who would want to sort of replace you. Even actually looking at our under 19 setups in 2023, right? The likes of Shweta Sehrawat and all of them, the past few years have been really difficult, right? They've not been able to kind of take it from that level to the next. I mean, we do see Shweta play for UP Warriors, but not being still able to do something after that, and not being a part of this A side is definitely a heartbreak in that sense. But hopefully, these players, who are injured, who are sidelined, find a way back into the setup, because I think to even see the next domestic tournament, there's significant chunk of months. Probably we see it start in October, right? So that's again a long layoff for a lot of them. And yeah, let's just see how things fall in place. But I hope with Kanika Ahuja, it's not a case of anything to do with fitness or injury, and she can find her way back. Yeah.
Yep, one can always hope. And yeah, the series begins on the 5th of August. We've already spoken in depth about the Australia squads as well. They were announced a few weeks ago, in fact, a month ago, probably. Episode 23 for all things Australia squad, episode 25 for all things India squad. Maybe closer to the series itself, we might talk about the series in general, because I don't think a lot else is happening around that time of the year. So that was that from the India squads. Now coming back, of course, to the main chat, India versus England. The ODIs also begin. The series begins on the 16th of June. There's a 3 ODI series happening in Southampton, Lords, and the Chesterley Street. Neha, World Cup year. In fact, we've got a World Cup in about 3 months' time. This is almost now an devastation. Both sides would want to ensure that they are as close to their first 11 as possible. Heather Knight on the one side seems all but injured. On the other side, we have a lot of injuries, but we have no status on them. Super excited for this.
Absolutely, Akshay. I think seeing both of these teams square off in the ODI series is definitely going to be an exciting one. If memory serves me right, the last time the two sides did square off in England was way back in 2022, a series that India absolutely dominated, annihilated England quite literally on home soil. Ending up winning the series 3-0. A lot of happy memories from that specific tour. Hopefully, India can again sort of replicate it. I mean, the last two we did see, Julan Goswami hang up her boots, a very emotional sort of a farewell and all of that transpiring. And even the last of probably Mithali Raj on English soil. But again, just the memories of that 3-0 win, very clinical, comprehensive wins. I remember when Harmanpreet Kaur, right, scoring that 143, which was such a big talking point. Again, just very reminiscent of her heroics and the kind of firepower she brings, right, to the setup. But even otherwise, just so many performances for India being positive. Hopefully, we can see a lot of that in this specific series, because India clearly has the momentum and they're riding on that sort of a confidence as well, right? That, hey, we've actually done so well in the T20I series. There's no reason why we can't do well in the ODI setup as well. For India, it's going to be an interesting case, because again, we'll see a change up top. We'll probably have Pratika open with, not probably, we will in all fairness see Pratika open with Smriti Mandana as well. Jamie probably coming in at 5, and then probably 3 you have Harleen, 4 you have Harman, and the rest of the combination, we will have to see how that sort of pans out. But I think moreover for England too, right? They're going to just have a lot to prove, right? Because we see the return of Nat Silverbrandt. No assurance if she's bowling or not, but England makes up for it with the rest of their pace bowling department as well. But even Sophie Eccleston, coming back after that West Indies series. So good signs of them, important players being in that setup. Maya Boucher is also being, in the contention, because, again, they just want to probably deepen their pattern side of things in case things go south. So all in all, yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting series, but very tempted to give India the edge right away, considering, the past baggage and a little bit of how, the momentum is clearly in India's court.
It'll be interesting, of course, with how the way the T20 series has panned out. I'm pretty sure a lot of fans and critics would now be probably favoring the Indian side. Yeah, talking about the squads themselves, of course, with England, most names picked themselves are fairly obvious that way. Not too many changes. Tammy Beaumont, Maya Boucher, Sophia Dunkley, Amy Jones being the batters. You've got Nat Silverbrandt. Again, we don't know if she's going to be bowling or not. Alice Davidson Richards, the bowling all-rounder. You've got Charlie Dean. Emma Lamb makes it to the ODI squad like she was against West Indies as well. Emma Lid, Lauren Bell, Kate Cross, Sophie Eccleston, Lauren Filer, and Lindsay Smith to boot. So this is the squad they've gone ahead with. We've already spoken about, the likes of Sarah Glenn and all missing, but ठीक है अभी उस पे ज़्यादा focus नहीं करेंगे. Neha, first 11, let's directly go into that. With England, we know Danny Whitehodge doesn't open in this format. It was Maya Boucher and Tammy Beaumont who was opening for the longest time. But we saw in the West Indies series, it was Amy Jones who was promoted. Maya wasn't given a chance then. And she really took that opportunity with both hands. 2 centuries in the 2 games she opened. Once again, does she slot back at the top, or do you see Maya coming in? Kya lag raha hai?
Honestly, actually, this is such a tough one, because Maya Boucher, right, to her credit, has been doing so well for Hampshire in the domestic side of things, beat in that one-day side of things, and now, in the ongoing Vitality Blast as well. So it's going to be a tough one for England, because in all the opportunities she did get for England, it had been that sort of a, tipsy-turvy sort of a situation where she wasn't able to maximize the most. But at least I think for the sake of consistency and, rewarding how Sophia Dunkley has been doing, they'd probably still be tempted to, have her open, right? I think that would add like a lot more balance to their playing 11, considering how she has been doing. And I always felt that, Sophia Dunkley is probably better suited for, the ODI side of things. Although T20s, I just feel like she slogs a lot and all of that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sophia Dunkley did just open for that final ODI, right? Yeah. And in the other ones, we did have the interesting combo of Tammy Beaumont and Amy Jones opening, which was probably just an experiment then. But do you think, Akshay, that they will sort of persist with this opening combo, whose numbers have obviously benefited a lot from the West Indies series? But do you think it's like a permanent experiment?
Yeah, you can't deny the fact that they had 2 crazy opening partnerships, to say the least. Tammy and Amy Jones, we were talking about this then as well, right? Ki their average versus Australia and New Zealand, and versus Australia, India, and New Zealand, and the other side, it's just poles apart. But given that Amy Jones also did not do herself any wrong by scoring 2 consecutive tons, they should, matlab, just as the incumbent, there's no reason not to persist with her. सोफिया डंकली का मेरे को पता नहीं वो मतलब खेलेंगी भी कि नहीं, मतलब मेरे को देखना है like how are they looking at this, खेलेंगी, I mean at the top, that is, sorry, of course, because when I look at how the squad shapes up, Tammy Beaumont, of course, there are no 2 questions about it, she will open for them. Nat Silverbrandt at 3 also is a given. That's where I'm having Amy Jones at the top for now. Nat Silverbrandt at 3/4. 4 is where she bats, because number 3 last time it was Emma Lamb over there, who played versus West Indies. So if they stick to that itself, and so then Emma at 3, Nat Silverbrandt at 4. Sophia Dunkley, Alice Capsey at 5 and 6. But this is where it becomes tricky because then they not play Danny White Hodge. Now Alice Capsey has also gotten herself into a rut. Sophia Dunkley will be an interesting choice. She's done pretty decently in the T20I, so I'm guessing she will hold on to her spot. So Alice Capsey ke badle, I wouldn't mind trying Danny White Hodge. Trying as in care. Danny White Hodge is anyway a number 5, number 6. She is your middle order batter in ODIs. So just bring her back in because Alice Capsey has genuinely done nothing. फील्डिंग तो वैसे भी हमने बात किया, bowling में भी she's hardly added any value, batting maybe we've not really seen much throughout this series. That's why I would probably then go ahead with Danny White Hodge and hope that that experience at least helps them somewhere. I would then have Sophie Eccleston at number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, Charlie Dean. I would go with both the Lawrence and I would go with Kate Cross, of course, at number 11. Charlie Dean मेरे को देखना है because I know that she wasn't a part of the West Indies series. Lindsay Smith had a crazy run over them. So I want to see how do they go about it. We also need to understand that Lindsay Smith got all those games also because you not have Sophie Eccleston. Now Eccleston comes back in. Lindsay Smith herself hasn't really bowled too well of late. Charlie Dean on the other hand has been decent enough. तो मेरे हिसाब से तो भाई they might just go ahead with Charlie Dean ahead of Lindsay Smith to have a proper off-spin option. Alice Capsey would go out for me, so that off-spin option would also be needed. That's why Charlie Dean would come in. So yeah, this is my 11. Once again, to be clear, I would go ahead with Tammy Amy. Number 3, Emma Lamb. Number 4, Nat Brandt. Number 5, Sophia Dunkley. Number 6, Danny White Hodge, or vice versa. Number 7, Sophia Eccleston. 8, 9, 10, 11, I would have Charlie Dean, Lauren Filer, Lauren Bell, and Kate Cross. Neha, thoughts? Agree, disagree?
Yeah, Akshay, I mean, it does look like quite a formidable playing 11 there. Slightly different from what I did have in mind. I mean, if you're bringing in that sort of an enforced change where you wanted to bring in Danny White Hodge in place of Alice Capsey, right, there briefly. I was also thinking, how about someone like an Alice Davidson Richards, right? Again, did well domestically. I think, the kind of performance she did put in, I think, if I'm not wrong, for Surrey was quite formidable. So I think if, we could somehow fit her into the scheme of things because at times, Alice Capsey just feels like a fourth fit into that setup. But I think, in all fairness, England would be very tempted to go ahead with Danny White Hodge. Obviously, comes in with that sort of performance as well. But slightly left field choice, I would be tempted to get an Alice Davidson Richards to just beef up that batting department because Danny White Hodge, in all fairness, has been struggling quite a bit. And if she's not batting up top, coming in that much later in your ODI setup, again, it's just pressure on her to perform and deliver those runs. And you have someone like an Alice Davidson Richards who can score those quick cameos, get you those runs. So I'm just slightly tempted to go in with that sort of an option and explore where it goes. And even with the idea of, I think you mentioned bringing in Charlie Dean, right, in place of Lindsay Smith. Again, just feeling a little tempted to give Lindsay Smith another opportunity in this series to just see, how she can sort of perform. Because in the West Indies series, she did really well. But come the India series, the T20 leg, as the first few games were not ideal for her. But I feel, she can find her groove in the, ODI leg side of things. And even with the pace department, I think, with Lauren Bell and Lauren Filer complemented by Kate Cross, definitely makes it quite formidable in that sense. England will definitely miss the services of Sarah Glenn. But then when you have Sophie Eccleston come back, I don't think there is a lot to complain. So, with Lindsay Smith, again, I think her inclusion kind of, again, would make it probably two left-arm spinners, right, for England. So that's why maybe Charlie Dean can warrant a place in the side. But interesting time for England. At least they have so many options to consider from. Hopefully, they can figure out that playing 11. But yeah, I think, Akshay, I think what you said, they would probably stick to the playing 11, almost similar to the playing 11 that you suggested, but wouldn't be surprised if they bring in a couple of those changes, because the series versus West Indies, the series versus India, obviously two different challenges. But the Tammy Bowman and Amy Jones experiment up top is something I'm very interested to see if they sort of, persist with it. And from the looks of it, they might be tempted to go ahead. Yeah.
That is an interesting name with Alice Davidson Richards. It's just that I don't know if she's going to be much of a batting upgrade. Sure, she'll add value with the ball. But I think for England, it's imperative that they beef up their batting. And that's why Danny White Hodge, all things said and done, if I need a batter at number 6, would I pick Danny White Hodge or Alice Davidson Richards? I would have to say DWH over there. And if they really want a pace bowling all-rounder to just have that 6th option, because in the 11 that I built, it's only 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 who would bowl. Danny White Hodge doesn't really bowl now, so up top there's no one else because Nat Brandt is also in all likelihood not going to bowl. Given that, if I have to consider, then I'd much rather bring in Emma Lit ना, क्योंकि उन्होंने तो दिखा है, उन्होंने वेस्ट इंडीज के सामने भी तो अच्छा किया था. So I'd rather bring her in, but once again, Emma Lit at 6, Charlie Dean or Sophie Eccleston at 7 and 8. That's a very weak batting lineup that hardly has any depth. All the three of them can handle themselves, but all the three of them will be batting a position higher. So that's why Danny White Hodge at 6 would ensure Sophie or Charlie at 7, Sophie at 8, which I still think is a position too high, but that's the least they can do without, sort of affecting their batting too much or their bowling too much for that matter. So this is how I would go about it. Had Nat Brandt been fit and raring to go, if she were able to bowl, then I think these questions or conundrums wouldn't have existed. But yeah, they will have to just live with it and hope that she gets fit soon enough, which she will. Pretty sure 100 maybe wo bowling karengi, so World Cup maybe wo karengi. But for now, this is the squad I would go with. Maybe take that risk with just 5 bowling options and see how it pans out, because we're not talking about 5 duds. We're talking about Kate Cross, Lauren Filer, Lauren Bell, Charlie Dean, Sophie Eccleston. All 5 of them are good, experienced, strong bowlers in their own right. So yeah, I like, if my 5 women bowling attack is looking like this, I don't mind taking that punt कि भाई इन्हीं 5 bowler से 50 over कराएंगे. So that was that from the England squad. India squad की बात करते हैं. Neha भाई, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the India squad too, right, wasn't very different from the T20 side of things. But that's what, it's very exciting to see how, just looking at the batting department, you have Smriti Mandana there, Yastika Bhatia as probably, your backup keeper. You have Harleen Dior, we have Richa Ghosh, Tejal Hasabnis, Pratika Raman, and Jemima Rodriguez. Again, looks like a very, very solid batting department. I think just if you even look at how you're going to build that India playing 11, it almost picks itself, right? You have Smriti Mandana and Pratika Raman opening. You have Harleen coming in at 3. Harmanpreet Kaur coming in at number 4. You have Jemima coming in at 5. Tempted to go there with Richa, obviously, at 6, yeah. Almost a given at this point. A little bit of a heart does go out to Tejal Hasabnis, has been doing really well, but this is just that sort of a side where we don't know where to fit her in unless you know. Exactly. So you see, right, how formidable the batting department is, and I think I'm not even qualified enough to talk, about how formidable this batting side does look, considering they come in with that sort of an experience, having done so well in 2022 and so well even in general. Now comes the interesting conundrum of who will be the all-rounders and eventually the bowling attack too. I think Amanjot Kaur has really made a case for herself, right? Has done so well in the T20I series, has done well for India in the past series as well. So I think she would definitely probably be number 7. And I think you can probably go with Deepti Sharma, Sneh Rana, and then you obviously have Arundhati Reddy and Shree Charani. That makes it 11, right? So at least for me, the playing 11 kind of shapes up like this. India again has a lot of options. Say you want to bring in a Radha Yadav a little later on in the series, she can definitely be brought in. Saili Satkare doesn't really fit in this playing 11 because if you're looking at express pace options, then I think it'll be really difficult for her and even Kranti in that regard. But yeah, actually, I think for me, the Indian playing 11 literally picks itself. Not a lot of concerns in that regard. And hopefully, yeah, they can sort of, just bring in that same jazba from the T20 series onto this ODI leg.
Yeah, basically, more or less the same 11 that played the Tri-Series final, if I'm not wrong, a few months ago in April, the Sri Lanka, South Africa, India Tri-Series. And from the T20 setup to the ODI setup, that makes it just the one change. The one change that we also want to see in the T20 setup. Harleen Diol, the batter, comes in at 3 instead of Radha Yadav, the all-rounder. And yeah, it is interesting that the ODI T20 squad is basically the same. I mean, the playing 11 is basically the same, which is fine. I mean, it is white ball cricket at the end of the day. So understandable. And I hope that it sort of stays this way as well going forward. Of course, once your first choice players do come in, you would see them replace whoever's in the setup right now. But agree with you, Pratika, Smriti haven't done anything wrong. Harleen, Harman, Jenny, Richa, and Amanjot, that's a very solid middle order there with all of them in some shape or semblance of form, 8, 9, 10, 11, you've got Deepti, Sneh, and then Shree Charani and Arundhati Reddy. I think that's not too bad in terms of batting depth as well. If you've got Deepti Sharma at 8, Sneh Rana at 9, Arundhati at 10, Shree Charani at 11, दीप्ति शर्मा इस फॉर्मेट में तो मेरे को टेंशन नहीं, she'll have the time to just nudge singles and all of it. वो pressure नहीं रहेगा of scoring at a brisk pace, so that will definitely favor her. And on the bowling front, once again, which means they will be leaning in towards the spinner side of things, which is their strength. So they will be going ahead with 3 spinners instead of 4 in कौन है भाई? Shree Rana, Shree Charani, and Deepti Sharma, and you've got Amanjot and Arundhati. The only downside to this is we were talking about how this would mean they'll have just the 5 bowling options, and that's where if T20Is may 5 bowling options might seem less in ODIs, so it's almost lacking. So that's why having that 6 bowling option becomes very important. Now, who do they look at for that 6 bowling option will be interesting. So do they then potentially look at bringing in Radha Yadav, sticking basically to the same T20 11 for the one days as well, because Jemmy has been promoted to 3. तो क्या वो ODIs में भी फिर जेमी को 3, हरमन को 4, ऋचा को 5 में भेज के, अमनजोत at 6 of course. Then number 7 can be Radha Yadav, can even be a Saili Sadgari if they think they need another pacer. So I want to see how do they go about it, because I do feel personally that 5 bowling options might be a tad too few. They need someone else, and Saili Sadgari is the only option they can try. Kranti Gaud is an out and out bowler, so doesn't really add value there. So देखना पड़ेगा. You might think of options in the first 11 or in that top 6 itself, but यार Harmanpreet the bowler तो पता है, Harmanpreet the captain doesn't trust much. Pratika Rawal, Jemmy, ये सब हैं. मतलब on paper they do bowl right arm off break, but I don't, even with Pratika, whatever we saw. Neha, you really think that she can do something?
I mean, honestly, Akshay, it will be difficult to expect a batter who can bowl a little to, kind of fill in the spot of that sixth bowler. But this is just an idea I was thinking of, probably have Harman bowl a few overs if needed. The situation is really going out of hand. You can have Pratika Rawal also, come in and chip in with those few overs. Smriti Mandana would be a little bit of a stretch because I think in the series versus South Africa, we saw that odd wicket coming in, but then obviously can't be looked at as that sort of.
You got Laura Wolfhard, right?
Sunelis.
Oh, Sunelis, acha.
Yeah, and even Jemima, right? We do see her roll her arm a little bit in the domestic side of things, but internationally, so we haven't seen that. In all fairness, India would really trust their 5 bowling options to get the job done, because anyways, they're going to expect that, belter sort of wickets. So a lot of runs on display, I think, for both teams, and a lot of runs for the taking, so to say. I don't think India would be too worried about that, but if needed and they really, really want that 6th bowling option, then I'd probably see someone like, as you rightly said, Radha Yadav coming in and it kind of, just rejigging that entire, bowling side of things and the entire team composition at large. But at least for the first ODI, I think we can agree that, India will probably go in with the conventional 5 bowling options and then see, if needed, who from the batting department can probably just chip in a few overs. Yeah.
Fair enough. And speaking about both these 11s now that we have an idea of how they might be looking like, series kya lag raha hai, boss? Which way is it headed?
Yeah, I think it really looks like India is going to win the ODI series. Again, this is not coming from a place of overconfidence or that, hey, we won the 2022 series, so hey, we're just going to do it again. But this looks like a very confident Indian side under Harman. They have been doing really well. I think even for just India's confidence ahead of the ICC Women's ODI World Cup later this year, they would look to win the series. So, you just get as much match practice, figure out your playing 11 and just, ride on that confidence. So I'm really thinking India's going to win the series, probably like, say 2-1, because 3-0 and all is very overconfident and England is not that bad of a side as well. But for England's sake and to keep the series a little competitive, I hope, it's like a 1-all at the end of 2 ODIs. And the third one is, like it all goes down to the wire and we get to see like a very, very close encounter. But I hope England can figure out a few combinations as well, because just seeing them do well against not so great teams and then, just inflating their ego and thinking, hey, we are going to be the next world beaters is not obviously a great sign. Hopefully we just get to see good cricket, whichever side wins. But at least right now, what I feel is India definitely has the advantage.
Interesting. I do want to say that India has the advantage over here. Pata nahi, matlab bolu ki nahi bolu. I'm going to say I'm going to predict like how I did the T20Is as well. I do think it'll be similar to the T20Is in that 2-1 होएगा. पता नहीं किसकी तरफ होगा. I predicted 3-2 for the T20Is. and not taking any sides. Basically, there are no clear favorites as such. Sure, based on current form in the T20Is, fans might be tempted to say, "Yeah, you know what? Maybe the Indian side start favorites," but you cannot say that right now. It's a different format, and on top of that, the England will also be like the wounded lionesses. And yeah, you know what they say about such creatures. So which is why we also have to be wary and also ensure that we play well in order to win the series and hopefully a few more games. uh, Last bit, of course, sorry, before I forget, bahut sare last bits bol diye. There were a few comments, a few questions that we received in the past that like questions that we hadn't taken. So I wanted to take that. Apologies. So I remember it was at UCO Manikandan M in one of the episodes had asked us a questions and asked us to take it up in the next episode. Guys, one more thing going forward, what we'll do let us know what you have, of course, in terms of opinions and thoughts as well. But also, if you have any questions for us, comments mein bataiye. We're more than happy to take these comments and then answer and address them in the next episode. That way we get to interact with you as well, and on top of that we can ensure that the video also gets a bit more engagement. So feel free, jo bhi aapke sawal hai. Yeah, now let's just take the question, of course, from Manikanda. Yeah, and the comment goes something like this. Thank you, Akshay and Neha. Why not Nushan Al Khadir as the head coach for UP Warriors? I'm guessing this is in regards to our chat about the UP Warriors head coach John Lewis being let go of, and who could they potentially consider going forward. So he also goes on to say she's very successful in the under 19 circuit as well. She's done decently well during India A tours. Lisa Stilekar is also a very good choice as UPW head coach. Mumbai Indians definitely will want to promote Julian Goswami as the head coach for MI. Amy Satterthwaite is also a good choice. Thank you so much for such quality content. When is the next live session? Please interact with me. Thank you so much, Mani. We really appreciate it. It's all heart. We really appreciate all the positivity that you've shown. I'm happy to take the question. Neha, Amy Satterthwaite, that's an interesting choice, firstly. And Nushan Al Khadir, what do you make of that? Gujarat Giants ke saath hi zyada unko wahan pe mila nahi in terms of success. Agree, disagree? Where are you at when it comes to that?
First things first, I think great comment. We did throw in a lot of interesting names when we did realize that a lot of franchises do have options that they'll have to figure out for this head coach role. I think ever since John Lewis stepped down, talking about Nushan Al Khadir definitely has made a case for herself. Has done so well, right, for the India Under 19 setup. Been a part of two victorious campaigns domestically as well. So many players speak highly of her. So wouldn't be entirely shocked, if UP would want to go that route because, again, alluding to our previous conversation, a lot of players feel comfortable when they have an Indian coach. So, they can just go up and have a chat and there's no language barrier and the information transfer is much better. Solution Al Khadir can be considered. But just looking at UP Warriors and the setup they have, to have someone like Lisa Stelekar, so I wouldn't be surprised if they again, want to opt and look for resources within and just, kind of elevate her and give her the role. But even with Amy Satterthwaite, I think I'm not sure how much of a coaching experience she has, right? We did see her retire very recently. When I say very recently, I know people will come at me, but at least, the coaching front probably has done a little bit for the grassroots side. But again, for a proper side, I'm not entirely sure. And that for a WPL side, again, it might be a big, big ask. I'm not sure if we did mention Sunetra Paranjpe in our last episode. Like she was a part of RCB's side. I think she's someone who can be considered by either of these franchises. Basically, I think the point I'm trying to say is just go for the Indian options you already have and see how they'll be able to perform and do wonders for these WPL teams. Yeah, and let's see how that pans out.
And one more reason why I think Amy Satterthwaite would be a bit of an odd choice is, yeah, unlike men's cricket, women's cricket isn't just as evolved. So firstly, when it comes to language barriers and all of that, there's already those hurdles that need to be crossed. And, those all can be negated just by having an Indian coach. Of course, it's not easy. You would also want to ensure that the quality of the coaching that's provided is also just as good. You can't simply go for an Indian coach ki bhai inko Hindi aati hai to baat kar lenge. So that's one. And secondly, like Neha said, Amy Satterthwaite, I'm not sure, great all-rounder, great, Kiwi player. But as a coach, I don't know what her credentials look like. I can't think of any side that she's coached across franchise leagues. Yes, Neha?
Akshay, just to quickly add here, correction I think that we can make. Amy Satterthwaite was the Adelaide Strikers assistant coach. This was way back in 2022 when she had just retired.
Retired.
But again, I'm not sure if it was a very productive tenure,
But
so
they
to
did
say.
win
We
the
have to
Athlete
see.
Strikers in 22 because they won 22-23 and lost 20. Wait, no, that's Brisbane Heat or it's. No, Adelaide Strikers only won, na?
Adelaide Strikers, yeah.
So all in all, Amy Satterthwaite, that would be an interesting choice, but dekhna padega apne ko. And any other names that come to mind right now? We did discuss a fair bit, so in case anyone joining in right now, you can go back to episode 23 to check out what we had discussed. But like money, guys, all of you, if you have any questions for us, feel free. Comment section may please batayega what questions you have. We're more than happy to take them up, and to the best of our abilities, we'll try and answer them. So that's that from episode 25 of the Women's Cricket Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like always, please make sure you hit the like button. Do share it with your friends. Let's try and grow the community. Until then, take care. Bye bye.